Hello, and welcome to Metropolitan Energy Center's 2020 annual virtual gala. My name is David Albrecht, and I'm Clean Cities co-coordinator at MEC, along with our executive director, Kelly Gilbert. You may be aware that Clean Cities concentrates on clean fuels and transportation, but one of the other things that I do is work as the point person for Project Living Proof. So, what's Project Living Proof? PLP, as we call it, is a long-term project that began well over a decade ago. It's a house at 917 Cleaver Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri. This was one of a series of houses built all the way back in 1914 by William Rockhill Nelson as model housing for employees of the Kansas City Star and Times, way back in the day. It really wasn't much of a model for anything except mold and mouse habitat, unfortunately, at the time we bought the property. Hole in the ceiling, water in the basement, peeling paint, crumbling floors. So the project involved a complete renovation of this property. But it wasn't just a garden variety renovation of plumbing and wiring and walls. We used this opportunity to put every kind of energy saving and renewable energy technology that we could into a relatively limited footprint of about 3,200 square feet of house. And we've done a lot of different upgrades over time. These range from the very large geothermal loop buried in the backyard to the very small, extra thick window panes that help us save energy, but at the same time also conform with historic building codes since we live in a historical neighborhood. It's complicated. But PLP isn't just a site to cram in as much energy-saving technology as we can. It's about getting people to think about the ways that they use energy and getting people to think about ways they can save energy and live more comfortably and save money in their home. PLP, it's intended as a place for education, for university students studying environmental science or architecture, for prospective homeowners or current homeowners who want to learn more about what they can do. It's a place for training energy efficiency professionals, taking the next step in their career and certification. And I'll briefly circle back on some of these functions here in a little bit, but I wanted to turn things over to a Q&A session with an actual energy expert who can provide his insights into the kinds of systems that are in place here at PLP and the kinds of upgrades and ideas that you might want to take on if you're a homeowner looking to make your space more comfortable, more affordable, and more sustainable.
David, I'm going to hijack this presentation for a second because we haven't even talked about the reasons why a yard that looks like this is better at conserving water than a lawn, and why that even matters. I'm Joy Ellsworth, Metro Energy Center's Development Director, and I'm pretty passionate about gardening. So I'm going to let you finish, David. I just got to say, even though lawn service in America is nearly $1 trillion industry, most lawns in the United States are over-fertilized and overwatered for the type of grass that's grown in them. When a household waters their lawn, that uses energy. Well, we rarely think about what electricity must be used to keep water pressure going strong every time we turn on the faucet. That electricity must be generated, and it's usually generated from coal-powered plants. But planting a native, deep-rooted garden like this one all around your home reduces your yard's need for water down to nearly zero. Who knew that planting hardy native plants could actually keep our air cleaner? Back to you, David.
I'd like you to meet Rick Jenkins. He is the owner and founder of Clean Efficient Energy Systems, LLC, which opened for business in 2006. He is an accredited ResNet Energy Rater, a Building Performance Institute certified building analyst, and he was one of the very first Energy Star 3 verified raters in the country, all the way back in 2009. In case these credentials don't sound too familiar to you, I'll let Rick talk a little bit about what he does and how he does it. Rick, can you tell us about your company and the kind of work that you do?
Sure. We're an independent third-party energy verifier consultant serving megawatts to the residential building community of Kansas City. We contribute to better homes, smaller energy loads, and clean energy production to replace dirty fuel and limit side effects thereof. So we're building scientists and we work with homeowners to make way for renewables by reducing their energy loads.
What prompted you to get into this line of work?
Well, I always found renewables, solar panels, wind turbines very sexy. So I decided to have a career change, and I spent a whole year getting certified to install solar panels and wind turbines. But every class that I did, every certification that I took, they said, but first you have to shrink the load of the home. Who shrinks the load of a home? What is that? An energy rater shrinks the load of the home, and energy auditors can do the same thing, energy professionals. So it doesn't make sense to do the sexy thing, the solar panels, the wind turbines, without reducing the load, making your home more efficient so its needs are smaller.
It sounds like basically you're going for the low-hanging fruit. It would be one way to put it. I wanted to go into some detail about the kind of systems that we already have in place here at PLP. And I mentioned the geothermal ground loop that powers the heat pump. That's kind of the heart of the HVAC system here. Can you explain how that system like that works?
I can. We have extreme temperatures here of 10 degrees in the wintertime, 95 degrees in the summertime. When you install a geothermal loop, as you have in your backyard, we're sending liquid through those tubes and they come back and bring us back 59 degrees. So now instead of heating 10 degrees, you're heating 59 degrees. Your heat pump only has to work that hard. And instead of cooling 94 degrees, you're cooling off of 59 degrees. Mm-hmm. So that's why it makes so much sense that you've done that. People can come and see that at PLP. I've got that at my house, and a lot of people have that. It's a working entity. It's a great deal.
We also have a photovoltaic solar system on the roof here, tied into the grid, since you can do that now. And you've got some background in solar technology. Is this something that you see trending? I mean, you seem to see more solar panels on houses these days, but that's just pure anecdotal evidence on my part.
I know that the solar industry here in Kansas City has grown and that they are busy and they'd love to be more busy. There's still a tax credit that people can get if they want to install this after coming to see it at PLP. There are tax credits that one can purchase by installing the solars. They've been up to 30% of the cost of the product. So there are incentives, but they won't last forever.
If somebody came to you and wanted to know what is the first, best, most cost-efficient thing that I could do if I want to cut my energy use, what's the first step that you'd recommend?
Reducing air leakage is the number one thing that people can do to save money on their monthly bills. We want to make sure that the house is not very leaky. So we'd want to make the house more airtight, like a cooler. We want to close the lid on the cooler. We want it to be as if all the windows in the house are closed. We, in our work, do blower door tests. We put a frame in the door and hook up a fan, and we suck air out of the house to figure out how leaky the house is. What we can do after that test is we can tell people that your house leaks as big as this size of a window.
Is the testing process you're talking about, does that take a long time? Is it expensive?
Depends on the size of the house, but it can run from $200 to $400 to do the test.
A lot of energy contractors, if you then have them do the air sealing and the insulation, they will simply write off the cost of the test. That's kind of a standard business practice for a lot of people who do this kind of work.
I happen to be an independent third party, so we just get an unbiased opinion of what the problem really is in order to solve that.
Sounds sensible. There's a lot more to this topic, and I could probably go on talking for several days. Rick, thank you so much for your time and your insights and your expertise. We really appreciate your help on this, and thank you for your support.
Thanks for everything you do there. It's really a valuable service that people can see and have contractors vetted and the place to go that they can trust. Thank you for your work.
You bet. These kinds of technologies can seem complicated and esoteric when you get into them, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive. If you want to make your house more comfortable, more energy efficient, more sustainable, you don't have to do it all at once. You can go step by step, and each step is going to make things a little quieter, a little cleaner, and a little more sustainable. house. If you've ever visited PLP, you will notice that it is surrounded by all kinds of garden beds, fruit trees, native plants, native ground cover, beautifully executed walkways, stonework, all kinds of cool stuff. And here to talk about the part of Project Living Proof that takes place beyond the walls of the house, I'm very happy to welcome Yvonne Jenkin. She is one of the lead gardeners here at Project Living Proof, and she's active with the Master Gardeners of Greater Kansas City. So, abrupt, awkward transition to changing chairs.
Master Gardeners are a volunteer program, and they are directed by the Extension Services from state universities. So ours is University of Missouri. It is a national program. There are Master Gardeners in, I believe, every state. And they are all a little bit different, but it was started as a volunteer service to provide help for the cities to care for public properties. Our Master Gardeners of Greater Kansas City have over 30 projects, of which Project Living Proof is one. We also do Truman House, Warnall House, we do community gardens, we do school outreach programs with children, and answer questions on our hotline.
So how did you first connect with Project Living Proof? I mean, how does this location sync up with what it is that you and your team do?
So I became involved in Project Living Proof in 2012. I was asked to take over the project. It was a new project at that time by our extension agent that is our advisor. They were looking for a native garden. A lot of the hardscape had already been put in, raised beds were in, and the walkways were in. They asked us to do the garden, and that's how we started.
What can you tell us about the kind of plantings or trees that you have here on site?
One of the goals was to make an urban garden that had edibles as well as beautiful flowers. And so we've added fruit trees to do that. And now we have raised beds which have tomatoes in them. Mostly it was to avoid using a lot of water and a lot of time. So there is no lawn, there is no mowing, there is no raking. But it's almost all native plants.
For a relatively small yard combined, there is a lot of output here. Let's put it that way. What do the Master Gardeners do with the vegetables and the fruit that they produce over the course of a season?
What we hope is that people will be walking by as we are doing our work days, and we can share it with people who are going by. We have in the past donated to harvesters, but mostly we try to give it to people who are visiting the garden.
Sounds like a fairly surefire way of luring the occasional new recruit. At least I certainly hope so. What else about what you do appeals to you? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this. There's local food production, there's self-sufficiency, there's helping native pollinators. What's your favorite part of what you do?
Well, it's always nice to be with a group of people who are as enthusiastic about gardening as you are. So we do a lot of talking and planning and guesswork on what new things we can try. My favorite thing, I am a pollinator geek, so I am into native bees and butterfly host plants and things like that. We just put a pollinator bed in yesterday in the front garden. So, but my Master Gardener beginnings we're in the state of Utah, which is a very different ecosystem from here. And so water conservation is incredibly important to me. And that's one of the things. We water our new plants, but we don't water anything else. So we water the tomatoes once a week. But once things are established, particularly native plants, they are native and they are used to this ecosystem.
Okay, there's a little bit of a personal bias embedded in this question, but I've got to ask if you would be okay with the installation of a beehive sometime next spring here at Project Living Proof.
That would be fantastic. Having beehives are a learning process, and it's great for the flowers and the fruit trees and everything else because everything gets pollinated.
Fair enough, in that if you are having a hard time attracting volunteers and interested people with fruits and vegetables, I think honey might well do the trick, so definitely worth a try. Our thanks again to Yvonne Jenkin and everything that the Master Gardeners do for us here at Project Living Proof. On behalf of MEC, thanks for tuning in and thank you for your support. Remember, our online auction runs through next Wednesday afternoon with a lot of cool stuff available for you. Proceeds from that go to benefit MEC. Our Wednesday evening gala will be live, even if it is virtual. We hope you will join us as well for our keynote presentation to hear more about where we're going in the future. I want to invite you, if you haven't visited Project Living Proof, please feel free to drop by. I'd be happy to set up a tour and talk in more detail about the many things we didn't have time to cover today. Just email me. It's david@metroenergy.org, and I would be happy to be your tour guide. Thank you for your time. Tune in for more broadcasts for the remainder of this week through Wednesday night, and I'll see you at the gala.